Welcome to Talentwise, the definitive podcast for CXOs, human resource and learning and development leaders. This show comes to you from thought leaders who talk about human capital development in today's organization. How to engage and empower today's employee to be effective, competitive and relevant. Stay with us for an exciting conversation with our guest and learn how to future-proof your team. I'm your host Shubhanjan, founder of Knowledge Bridge. Hello friends, welcome to this season finale of Talentwise. What a fantastic learning journey it was. We were delighted to hear from our guests spread over 26 weekly episodes. 6 months just went by. They spoke on a vast range of issues on future-proofing the team in the light of new and emerging technologies and practices that are transforming the workplace. From Uber to co-working, from deep work to agility, we discussed it all. Today we present to you the highlights of the season, the greatest challenges and the most innovative solutions that have been presented. Besides, we will also discuss some of the key issues and statistics from around the world. I'll be joined by Rajiv Aditya, the producer of the show today. Let us dive right in with Kalyan Banerjee.
Out there in Tandem, there was a Wipro team of more than 20 people who were fixing bugs on Tandem's fault-tolerant Unix. And the job of the bug leader was simple, that he had to assign bugs. Every day bugs will come in, or every week bugs will come in, and he has to assign bugs to the appropriate person. Now, in conventional thinking, you would assign the toughest bugs to the smartest people, and that's what he did, and the simplest bugs probably to the rookies. And every team has its normal distribution, and that's how you distribute the bugs among the people. Now, there was one interesting person in Tandem called Mario Pagliaro, who was doing research in software engineering, and his interest area was productivity of teams, and that's pretty relevant to our discussion here. And what he experimented with was, can we give the toughest problems not to the smartest people, but to the next level of smart people? And can we give the average problems to the smartest people? And then we check how the productivity happens in the team. Does it remain the same, becomes better, worse? And interestingly, what happened was, in that team, the second level of smartest people, they could tackle the problems, they could tackle the toughest problems, and hence they grew. So this became a very good exercise in capacity building. On the other hand, the smartest people, they were tackling only average problems, so they had plenty of free time. Now, in the past, when they were tackling the toughest problems, they had very little free time. They were preoccupied with their own challenges, and they had very little time to spare for other people in the team. But now they had plenty of time to spare, and including the second best people who were tackling the toughest problems and everybody else in the team. And hence, everybody benefited from this, and the team productivity increased.
Team productivity to team. What does it take to create a job? TN Hari has some statistics and also the size of the problem India faces in cashing its demographic dividend.
India is a youthful nation, young nation, and every year you have 12 million plus youth entering employable age. So you need to find jobs for these people. Now, from time to time, you keep hearing, in various summits, industry, investor, government summits. At the end of these summits, you find very grand announcements that, so many 100,000 crores are being invested, so many jobs are being created. But just think of the reality. Most of these investments consume about 4 crores of capital to create one job. So if you create 12 million jobs a year, you require 12 million into 4 crore rupees, which is about 15 times of India's annual investable surplus. So you need 15 years of annual investable surplus to create 1 year's job requirements. See that this approach is just not going to work, which is a very, very capital intensive approach for India, is not going to be able to create jobs. You can just create less than 800,000 jobs through this approach. If you just use India's annual investable surplus to create 12 million jobs, the capital available is about 30 lakh rupees per job. A real example of Big Basket. We've raised about $700 million roughly, and we've created about 18,000 jobs. This has consumed about 30 lakh rupees of capital for every job. This is within the ballpark that I told you need to using the nation's surplus to create 12 million jobs. So we are within the ballpark. And just look at Big Basket's, employment mix. We have 2,000 white collar, 1,000 semi-white collar, and 15,000 blue collar. So with this kind of capital to back job creation, limited capital, the majority of the jobs that you're going to create will be largely blue collar. So the reality for India is that it is very difficult to become a prosperous nation like a nation in Europe or the US.
So automation is going to be the key. Rajiv, what do you find when you try to figure the impact of AI on jobs?
There have been quite a few studies. For instance, a McKinsey study, interestingly, found that technology has created more jobs than it has destroyed. More interestingly, most jobs created by technology are outside the technology producing sector itself. McKinsey estimated that the introduction of the PC has enabled creation of about 15.8 million net new jobs in the US since 1980, even after accounting for jobs displaced. And 90% of these are in occupations that use the PC in other industries, such as call center representatives, financial analysts, inventory managers, that sort of thing.
This is a complex adjustment period. AI will take to start with repetitive jobs. But to get that going, AI needs to be trained. Who is going to do that? Let's listen to Dr. Sridhar Mitta.
The world of work is too big a canvas. I am more interested in talking about new opportunities which are being created by technology and the global impact which can be exploited by the Indian workforce. For example, we are talking about lots of graduates, both science, arts, engineering graduates, who are passing every year and who are not participating in the IT BPM revolution. So they have all the capabilities which are required. There is a huge market which is developing, and the only reason why they are not participating is because of the geography. So they are in small towns or rural places, whereas IT companies are in big cities and metros. But ironically, this is the same problem which IT industry has solved for the last 40 years, when the work came from US and Europe to Indian cities, and we are still struggling how to take work from Indian cities to Indian small towns.
Rajiv, Aditya.
Plus, there are new sectors such as e-commerce, cab-hailing platforms, digital financial services, microlending. So many of these sectors are growing rapidly, and these have improved income opportunities for about 18 to 22 million workers in the last 3 to 4 years.
Ramesh Srinivas is looking deeply at the BFSI sector. What does he see happening there?
One of the changes that appears to be very significant and driven by technology is the fact that a lot of, at least up until a few years ago, field sales people had to go out and get in touch with a large number of customers, right? So it was about them reaching out to people, getting leads and coming back in, etc. But today's digital allows the bank itself to get in touch through digital means with a host of customers. It has two significant impacts. Number one is the fact that if you want to call it, productivity of that salesperson goes up because they help in the closure part. Number two, most significant, is the number of job roles of that is going to come down. If you look at the field sales structure today of any of these large field forces, if you have 60,000, let's say, feet on street, For typically every 5 of them, you will have one first level supervisor. So 60,000 feet on street, you have 12,000 supervisors. And each of those 12,000, let's say each of those 5 or 6 of them, you will have another second level supervisor, right? Which goes into 2,000 or 3,000, let's say. So there are these layers of management that get built up. And the only role of that management really is monitoring the feet on street. Strictly speaking, their only value add is in managing, if you want to call it that, all of these people. Today, technology like AI allows people at the top to manage the field force without some of these intermediate layers.
Rajiv Aditya.
Some estimates are predicting that between 400 million to 800 million individuals could be displaced by automation and will need to find new jobs by 2030. And around 75 million to 375 million may need to switch to a new occupational category, learn new skills. But this will not be easy, because learning new skills for most people may prove to be difficult in the current situation.
At the ground level, where is the impact? Retail is one clear target for change. Let's hear from Deva Adya.
But now lot of the personalized interaction like customer service is also getting digitized and automated and often producing a better output. So you see self-ordering kiosk or automated customer service and from chatbots to everything, which based on initial bits of even artificial intelligence, often people are finding a more consistent response that a company can provide. This is a big change, because one of the thoughts was where you need personalization, people would be needed. Together you can create mass customization and mass personalization through technology and digital in many fields, and that is a big threat to mass employability then.
Rajiv Aditya.
But overall, the effects of automation are going to be very different in different countries. So it's not going to be the same as it is in the US. For instance, in India, there has been deep structural shifts taking place in the labor market. Between 2011 and 15, employment in agriculture came down by 26 million. But employment also rose by 33 million in other sectors. So advances in automation technologies are also creating jobs in India. For now at least, jobs are being created in IT and BPO sectors. These sectors are net job creators, and the sector could hire up to 3 million more people by 2025.
Now, let's listen to Catherine B. Roy. What does the future of work look like from her vantage point?
I see the future of work changing very rapidly. And I believe that we need to be aware of that, and to, as CEOs and leaders of our companies, do something now before it's too late. What I perceive that it is happening is actually that artificial intelligence and machine learning are taking over. I have been web developer for 12 years. I am Java web programmer, so I basically develop applications for huge enterprises. And although I love doing that, I started to be aware that because I am making an automatization of a system in a company, for example, accounting, then 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 people will lose the job because they are not needed anymore. And if company doesn't invest in those people, if they don't learn other skills, and if they don't work on themselves, they will end up without a job.
Rajiv Aditya.
Let's take another study into consideration. This is the Partnership on AI study. They did a study based on 3 organizations located across 3 places in 3 different industries. Their focus organizations were Tata Steel Europe, which is based in the Netherlands, Axis Bank in India, and Zymergen. That's a biotech startup in the San Francisco Bay Area. All 3 companies had implemented AI in some form. They found that the impacts on jobs varied widely across these entities. In Europe, Tata Steel reported great benefits. They had developed the AI in-house and they had retrained their staff to do that. There were no job losses. Zymergen started out as an AI native company, and they already had qualified people on their team. So no direct AI-related workforce reductions happened in Zymergen. At Axis Bank, the impact of AI on labor was indirect. The majority of its customer service operations had been outsourced, and so no direct employees of the bank were involved in this particular exercise. What has changed in the mature geographies though, that is San Francisco and the Netherlands, is that the internal workforce composition has tilted towards researchers and scientists. So the needs of hiring has changed. The AI mature companies are looking for hybrid profiles. Candidates should have some kind of interdisciplinary expertise. Zymergen's target hiring profile asks for experience in biology and data science capabilities. In fact, there are universities which teach data science through bio. So proficiency in R and Python is a necessity. Similarly, Tata Steel Europe looks for engineers who have an understanding of the steelmaking process, but can be trained in data science skills.
What emerges is that skills need to be cross-domain. That is what Rashmi Arya talks about here.
An engineer should be able to understand the language. You cannot not understand what a controls guy or a mechanical guy or software guy does. Many a times I see this resistance within my own group at times is, no, but I'm a control engineer and he needs to do the parts. Even for sales engineering, between sales and sales engineering, that always is the case where the sales guys say that my job is to talk to the customer, my job is not to understand the layout. But of course it is, because you will be explaining the layout. Yeah, and that is why we have engineers who are selling. So maybe we need to look at a different way of doing engineering itself. Maybe we need to really be integrated in our approach of doing engineering jobs if we're talking about engineering purely. Okay. It cannot be restricted to, and yes, while collaboration is a key skill, also the understandability of other skills is important. You may not be a master, but you need to understand and you need to connect in terms of technical, know-how if the job is related to your job.
Rajiv Aditya.
So the experts are saying that automation will have a far smaller effect on jobs that involve managing people, applying expertise, and have some kind of social interactions in them, because machines are unable to match human performance in these activities till now. Frey and Osborne did a study at Oxford in 2016. They found that sales jobs, service industry jobs, office administration jobs are more likely to be replaced. On the other hand, jobs in education, legal, healthcare, arts, and media, these are less prone to getting replaced by automation or AI. Jobs in unpredictable environments, let's say occupations such as gardeners, plumbers, providers of child care, elder care, these also will see less automation because they are technically difficult to automate and often pay out lower wages. Plus, because they are dispersed and they happen far away from a centralized location, it makes automation difficult and less attractive a business proposition.
By the way, talent mobility is also part of the future. This has been voiced by multiple guests on the show. Here is Ritu Ranade.
What's happening in today's time is the boundaries are thinning. The talent pool is accessible across the globe. I see scenarios where if there is a talent pool available in a particular country, it's much simpler to fly that talent than to source locally. That's the change. That's a very big change. And that means you're not only competing with your talent internally in a particular country or in a particular environment, but you have to become a global worker. Yep. That development is super important. That thought process is super important. That are you a true global worker? Have you built your talents and your skills? Or are you exposed well enough that your skills can be used across the globe? That's a very big differentiator today. I see this on a daily basis where the the boundaries between countries are thinning. The process of flying people across to deliver to the customer the best of the services is most important. And hence, being a global worker is my third most important view that I would recommend that every leader, every team manager has to have on.
Rajiv, Aditya.
So the impact of AI will not be the same across the world mainly because the investment in AI is very different for different countries. But there is also the question of the population as a whole. So countries with larger populations have a bigger problem to start with. Let's take the case of USA. 66% of all investment in AI companies in 2016 happened in the US. China was second, but still far behind at 17%. But the potential loss of employment due to automation is far greater in China than in the US in terms of absolute numbers, and that's simply because of its larger population. The propensity to automate is a key factor, and this depends to a large extent on per capita GDP. So, is it lucrative for the organization to automate? When wages are high, obviously, yes. Otherwise, using cheap labor is a better option than investing in technology. India is at another extreme. This is due to the low wage rates. The return on investment on automation that brings in only 0.8 to 1.4% productivity growth does not make business sense in India.
From impact of automation in India to Industry 4.0, amidst visible slowdown in the industry, what other markers are we missing or should we look at? Here is Shubhabrata Saha.
Let me just take a small example of, let's say, Industry 4.0. As a sector, it has embraced pretty early the context of Industry 4.0. While organizations may have had varied levels of change and speed in terms of accepting this, but the industry has embraced this. And that we are seeing in terms of the culture and evolution of the shop floor as well. Take, for example, the whole digitalization of the supply chain from customer to a disaggregated level at a supplier end. This whole chain is so clear and visible. And as employees embrace that and see how things shift, instead of their usual old ways of working, to something that is being run by programs and algorithms, it is having a direct bearing in the manner in which they run the business, both at the front end as well as at the back end. How does it kind of impact the core working capital and impact the cash flows of the company? These are areas that teams are able to kind of visualize and see how technology can have a direct bearing and impact on the way they run the business. Take another example. We've got sensors in machines today. Earlier it used to be, let's say, things like time-based monitoring, right? To condition-based monitoring and then having an impact on the repair and maintenance cost of large manufacturing outfits. So there are multiple sets of examples that we are seeing evolution in. And tomorrow's technologies coming into India at lower costs, whether it is AR, VR, whether it is for doing training and doing work on the shop floor, and so on and so forth. There are multiple facets of some of these that are still at an early date. I kind of foresee that shift happening in a fairly big way.
Let's take a short break. You are listening to a Business Podcast Network original. Podcasting is the fastest growing content marketing opportunity which is untapped. We can help you craft your audio strategy and help leverage the wide reach and easy streaming capability that the smartphone penetration provides. It is easy, it is powerful and personal. Talk to us to find out how podcasting can help you build your brand and reach out to your targets like never before. Write to us at bpn@bizcast.in. That is bpn@bizcast.in. Business Podcast Network. Podcasts end to end. Welcome back. Rajiv, Aditya.
Some sectors are leading in AI adoption. High-tech, telecoms, financial services, these are early adopters. A section of automakers also use AI to improve operations. Some of them are also developing self-driving vehicles, but most other sectors lag far behind. If you look at a time frame of 10 to 11 years from now, up to 30% of the hours that are worked globally today could be automated. If you look at occupations and activities separately, about half the activities that people are paid to do globally today could theoretically be automated by 2030. But very few occupations, that is less than 5%, consist of activities that could be fully automated, replacing human labor.
While we are talking about a lot of automation, there are other factors that are impacting this shift. Behavior change, for example, change of attitude towards lifelong employability. Some shift away from consumerism to convenience. Uber and co-working are two such trends that are early indications. Viable business model or not. A shift to purpose over profit. Suman Ghosh and Bhavani Singh Shekhawat sees these threads. What's going on? Suman.
Yes, and in the startups, this is already happening. In the sense, a lot of people I'm noticing, especially students, even though they know that startups may not be so remunerative, but today a whole bunch of students do not want to enter the traditional large companies. They want to work in startups. And there is a reason for that, because one is startups has a higher sense of purpose, and they want to utilize the skill that they have built, certain skills, right? It's also becoming more about skills, right? So for a student, degrees will matter more and less, and that's what the research is showing globally. It will really become skill based. So yes, to your question, people are joining startups because of that, and once people join startups, it is also a matter of how much value they're adding, because people are highly visible. They're not, hidden under layers of management. It's a very lean organization, typical startup, and then everybody has to bring their value. And if they don't, then they're out, and they have to find something else, or they have to renew themselves.
Now, Bhavani.
Of course, I think more and more employees are looking at a portfolio of work in their lives. And increasingly, they're also looking for that portfolio on a daily basis. So it's not over a period of time that for the first 20 years of my life, I'll do this. For the next 20 years of my life, I'll do this. And for the next X number of years. No, it's not how they chunk their portfolio. People are looking for increasingly diverse and fulfilling experiences on a daily basis. People are finding more than one way of fulfilling their lives. So they might want to make money in 3 different ways in a day. They might want to work at a workplace, then they might want to blog for money, and they might want to be a part of a band at a pub singing a few songs, but they don't want to do it just for the joy of singing. They also want to make money doing that. So people are having portfolio careers. They're trying to do more than one thing because they want different kinds of pleasures and outcomes in their lives, which in totality make them feel a lot better about their lives than leading a unidimensional life. And in so doing, they also want to believe that they are doing something meaningful.
Rajiv, Aditya.
Freelancers are better prepared for the future. In the last 6 months, if you look at what freelancers have been doing, 55% of them have participated in some skill-related education. And this is against only 30% of non-freelancers. Upwork and Freelancers Union did a study in 2017 called Freelancing in America 2017. They found that 57.3 million Americans were already freelancing. That is 36% of the total US workforce. That's huge. And they predicted that the majority of the US workforce would soon freelance, and at the current growth rate, it will reach this milestone by 2027. But freelancers have other problems, so they don't have a steady income. To counter that, on an average, they have 4.5 clients per head to bring in some amount of stability. This is like insurance to them. The other biggest insurance, of course, is knowledge. They realize that that's what's going to keep them relevant and in demand in the future.
So the ability to reskill has become a core capability in remaining relevant for a long span of time. Abhijit Bhaduri was responsible for 100,000 employees at Wipro. Abhijit talks about the half-life of skills and reinventing yourself.
So I think one of the major pieces that is happening in the digital world is that you're looking at this whole notion of skill building has been something which we are moving away from pretty much a three-level structure. You learn, then you earn, and you retire. So pretty much if you divide your work, your life into three segments. Your first segment is your sort of really first 20 odd years. You're learning stuff. You go to college or education or whatever, and then you start earning. You earn for the next 20, 30 years. And then after that, you're looking to retire and sort of, eventually fade out. What's interesting is that what you learned earlier and what you got credentialed in is good enough to last you. At least it used to be good enough to last you, for a very long time. Now, actually, what has happened has been that you can no longer actually continue with the same credentials, and you go through this. Is earlier it used to be that the half-life of your skills used to be 5 years, which is that every 5 years you needed to upgrade yourself. Now it has become 2 or 3 years, depending on which skill we are talking about. And we are getting into a place where, the nature of the skills is going to be different. I mean, of course, you will need your usual domain skills. You will need, to be continuously reinventing yourself there, because work is getting reinvented because of artificial intelligence and all those capabilities. But I think what is also happening is twofold. One is people are living longer, so they will need to sustain themselves financially for a much longer span of time, which means you need to be relevant for a very long span of time. So, the notion of skill is not just really around, finding some kind of work to do, but skill is also, something that's going to give us identity, and it's something that we are looking to, keep us going for a much longer span of time.
Rajiv Aditya.
So jobs of the future will require skills in activities that machines are less capable of. These include things like managing people, applying expertise, communicating with others. Eric Brynolfsson is director of MIT's Initiative on the Digital Economy. He conducts research on the effects of information technology on the economy. He has written 4 books on the subject. He said that the more successful people today are not necessarily the ones with only math or technical skills. They are people with a combination of those and soft skills. Machines are great at doing structured tasks, which includes maths and algorithms. But machines are not good at 2 categories where humans excel. The first is creativity and large-scale problem identification. This means being able to ask the right questions and figuring out creative, out-of-the-box solutions. The second category is interpersonal skills, which means leadership, motivating, selling, persuading, caring for people, nurturing people. These are things that we can't rely on machines to do. If you can combine technical skills with both creativity and interpersonal skills, that's the winning combination that we are looking for.
It will be about agility, believes Kalyan.
At Mindtree, we did a leadership capacity building program for the top 200 leaders, and that was around 2010. And at that time, we learned that what's important for the future is learning agility, and that made a lot of sense to us, because over the last 20 years or the previous 20 years in my career, I heard everybody talking of potential, and we value people with potential. But I never knew, and nobody answered this question, how do you measure potential? I found that everybody measures potential by past performance. And in that sense, it is potential is almost equal to performance. But somehow I was not convinced with that answer. Now, when this concept of learning agility came in, now the proponents of learning agility said that potential means learning agility. So, and then somehow that made sense to me.
Shalini Pillai.
So sitting there are 5 levers, the first of which is mental agility. How good are you at your solutioning mindset? Can you think out of the box? Can you come up with ideas that are innovative, that are out of the ordinary? Can you kind of really think differently? The second metric is what you call results agility, which says that in a context where you're faced with constraints or irrespective of the scenario, how resourceful are you to drive the end result? The third one is what we call people agility, which is your ability to work with people around you. And that does not necessarily mean teams that report into you. It is working with people who may be above you in the hierarchy. It could be working with peers, working with a wider ecosystem. How influential are you in terms of the way you work with people? The fourth one is on change agility, which is the ability to measure how an individual performs when faced with change that has been unprecedented. And the fourth aspect to how that comes under this overall model that we've used is the self-awareness quotient. So how self-aware are you of your strengths and your deficiencies?
Rajiv Aditya.
Iyad Rawan, he's from MIT Media Labs. He did a research on the future of the workforce and how automation may affect it. His team worked on skill sets. They came up with some very interesting results. They segregated jobs based on the kind of skills required. So they grouped together jobs based on similar skill sets. For example, an accountant and an insurance agent both need to know some maths and how to use computers. On the other end of the spectrum, a crane operator and a truck driver needed to have an entirely different set of skills, more on the physical side. So they found that instead of these skills lying on a continuous spectrum, they tended to clump together into two distinct categories of cognitive skills and physical skills. Cognitive jobs require social skills, speech skills, persuasion skills, and physical jobs need psychomotor skills, sensory skills. Now, there was a strong correlation between the job types and education and wage earnings. The cognitive jobs earn much more wages on average, and these workers have higher education levels. People within a cluster set of skills can move into another job or learn new skills in the same cluster set without much difficulty. Crossing the gap and getting a job in the other cluster is very difficult. So a farmer cannot learn new skills today to become an insurance agent. The study also found that the low-paying physical type of jobs have a greater potential of getting automated.
These are intrinsically linked concepts: agility and reskilling, continuous learning. Yet, worldwide, the focus of organizations in reskilling is awfully myopic. Sanjay Jha talks about the challenges.
Reskilling and upskilling, and then that too in expeditious manner will become very, very, and it will not be so easy. From the way we are currently training people, that will undergo severe change, because there will be always pressure on people to learn quickly, but same time people would be expected to learn while doing the things. There will not be luxury to send people to classroom. So the way we are training our people, that will undergo change, and becoming technology savvy will become the order of the day. So this will happen at people at large level, and because of that, because of this speed, because of the requirement for reskilling and upskilling, one will be required to be open to new changes, flexible, agile, and adaptable. And that is why it will be very, very important for leaders to move from the supervisory role to the role of coach, the role of mentor, to role of somebody who could counsel, who could facilitate, who could help the employees to explore the self journey.
Rajiv Aditya.
The easy and standard advice across the board has been, if you want to future-proof your job, embrace machine learning. You are likely to stay ahead of your colleague who chose to take a ringside seat. This is what Eric Brynolfsson said, by the way. He says managers who know how to use machine learning will replace managers who don't. Jason Furman, who's been President Obama's chief economist, and he's been a member of the cabinet, said that the most important thing to do is to equip people to succeed in a world with globalization, AI, and changing technology. The United States spends about 0.2% of its GDP on labor market programs, including training. It's been noted that that's the lowest of any of the advanced economies in the OECD. That is something Furman says that the US should really invest in much, much more. There was a recent conclave in Las Vegas, the Dell Technologies World 2019. will.i.am, who's an American rapper and also an investor in AI, said something very interesting. He said there is too much investment in artificial intelligence and too little in human intelligence. He said that the education system must be totally revamped to pull people up to a level of skill that really works in the current environment of these technologies being developed.
Rethinking of education will see another major shift. The move from STEM to STEAM. Arts, humanities and design will be central to new skill sets that would be required. What does Prajjal Saha see as the editor of the largest HR digital portal in India?
I was talking to, one of the HR leaders of the topmost IT companies in India. He said, Prajjal, nothing is going to change overnight. We will still be hiring coders, preferentially from the engineering or STEM background. But the way we code or the coding language might change. So that is a small change that might happen, But ultimately you will need coders. Now, the biggest, the another change that could happen is now, IT companies are trying to hire people from arts background. Because probably, they have got a different thinking process and they come with a probably different analogy, which probably the science guys don't. So that's the reason you will see now IT companies are also hiring people from arts background because you need differently, that is why you need diversity in the team. So now here, if you see, your industry is changing. You have tried to, find out talent in or skill sets in the existing pool that you have. But are you really trying to say that, it is like, if you ask me that, I need this kind of talent in 5 years. So, I should go and tie up with an academia and I should, churn out these many numbers of people who just specialize in this. It is not happening. If you call is the preparedness for the future.
Staying with upskilling and reskilling, they need to be data driven. Not a lot of data is available which can in turn offer clarity. How is the industry responding? Let's listen to Arun Muthukumar and Amit Bhargava.
The gaps is a very relative word, right? See, what I know and what I don't know today is different from what I know or don't know a week from today. So that is why the need for continuous assessment of those gaps and continuous reinforcement is very, very important. And that is where our model of everyday learning and assessment and adapting the system to tweak the what should I say as what is your learning queue, right? The set of things that you, Shubhanjan, as an individual needs to learn. The system is smart enough to keep figuring it out and giving you that personalized cue on a daily basis. So, for example, a week from today, the things you need to learn may be a set of things that you've forgotten. It might also include a new set of things. Let's say the company's launched a new promotion or a new product. You need to be aware of that. So it could be a combination of old things. It could be plus the new things that have been launched, plus some, say, new competitor information, or new regulatory compliance related thing, or a new process, or a new issue in the field that you need to be aware of. So many things. I think it's a knowledge economy today. The knowledge worker of today needs to know so many things on a daily, weekly basis, that the only way that can be done effectively is through this kind of very focused, technology-driven, data-driven approach.
Amit Bhargava.
We find that a lot of changes are going to come in the bulk hiring part also. There is going to be a lot of aggregation there, because not many companies are very comfortable with the bulk hiring. So there has to be a linkage through platforms which are going to be available, like NSDC, National Skill Development Corporation. They have a platform where you have these blue collar people who have got trained by various training partners. The database is available to be used. You have a portal like Naukri.com for especially these blue collar hiring, but none of my known had a clue about it because there's no awareness. So we are trying to implement such softwares wherein these bigger giants, they can ease out their burden of hiring on the blue collar. Similarly, for white collar or the freshers, there are various platforms which are there, which are not used, and they are not being utilized properly by the industry.
Rajiv Aditya.
There will be opportunities in sectors that do not require automation or cannot be automated, but higher education will always be a good insurance. Skilled and semi-skilled jobs will require some skill beyond high school education. That seems to be the trend. But let's talk about some of the places where there may be new jobs which can't be automated. If you look at, again, a time frame of the next 10 to 11 years, by 2030, there will be at least 300 million more people aged 65 years or older than there were in 2014. So their spending patterns shift with an increase in healthcare, personal services. So there will be new demand for quite a few occupations such as doctors, nurses, health technicians, personal care aides, caregivers, nursing assistants. The estimate globally is that healthcare and related jobs due to aging could grow by 50 million to 85 million by 2030. And also, in the unorganized sector, which employs, let's say, plumbers, gardeners, other service people like that, there will be a reverse trend. That is, automation will not take away these jobs because it will not be lucrative or physically possible to automate dispersed activities. But on the other hand, these activities will become more marketable through aggregation apps. So services like HouseJoy or Urban Clap, which are already operating in India, will actually help to increase such jobs, as well as raise the income for people employed in these occupations. There are going to be many jobs that we don't know about now. These are new jobs that will be created. For instance, there is a new category of jobs called robot pilots. These are in the human-machine collaboration area. Some people are now piloting drones. They deliver food, groceries, provisions that are ordered online. So newer platforms are trying to disrupt the business with faster delivery, and they're employing these people to drive drones which will deliver the goods. There are others who are driving remote-controlled cars. There are some other areas of human-machine collaboration that are interesting and creating jobs indirectly. Microsoft's HoloLens. There is an auto assembling company in US which fits trucks. They have started using HoloLens for training. All the worker has to do is wear the HoloLens, and markers, arrows, 3D instructions appear layered right on top of the real auto part they're working on. This kind of training requires someone to create it. This new virtual training and many other fields like this, VR, AI, these are going to create some new jobs which are not directly about coding in AI or robotic process automation, but spin-off jobs created due to these technologies.
Talentwise is brought to you by Knowledge Bridge.
We produce customized and multilingual visual training content. We have worked on complex processes, products, and skills development for large blue chip brands such as Tata Motors, Mahindra First Choice, Homelane, Epson, Toyota, Citibank, and Consol Neowatt, serving diverse industries. Talk to us for your next custom content requirement and be pleasantly surprised. Call us on 99021 631 32.
Well, that brings us to the close of this super special episode and a great season of discussion on the future of work and future-proofing your team. We will be back next quarter with a brand new season and awesome lineup of guests. Look out for our promos that will continue to bring you through this period. Have suggestions, questions, want to see someone on the show? Just connect with me on LinkedIn or tweet to hello_Shubhanjan. Here's wishing you a wonderful year ahead from all of us here at Talentwise. Thank you for being with us today on Talentwise. We hope we helped you focus on some actionable ideas today. It was certainly enlightening for us. We hope to see you again on our next episode. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts from, and give us a rating while you're at it. Thank you in advance.